10 babies died in 48 hours gets a clean chit from a government panel. But today, after intense media focus, some new equipment and supplies have been rushed into the hospital.
Hemlata lost her firstborn baby girl hardly a few hours after her birth on Thursday. The family says they were given an air pump to help the baby breathe because ventilators were reportedly unavailable. 2 of the 4 ventilators in the hospital were under repair.
वो दबाने का करने का वैसा कर लेता बेटा था तो बच्चे चले गए हमारा.
The baby was among the 10 who died between Wednesday and Thursday at Kurnool's district hospital. The family had brought Hemlata from their home some 40 kilometers away because she had high blood pressure and they were told it could be risky.
अभी क्या सोच रहे हो आपके ये डॉक्टर के ऊपर क्या डिमांड क्या कर रहे हो आप?
डॉक्टर ऊपर डिमांड क्या करने के जी अब गवर्नमेंट वसती रखे तो उसको डॉक्टर ने करने का गवर्नमेंट वसती नहीं रखे उसको डॉक्टर क्या करने नहीं आता.
The hospital caters to people from at least 5 surrounding districts and the rush is such that infrastructure, both equipment and trained manpower is perennially in short supply.
We have become alerted and although these things are common, we have taken more pains to see that even more care is given to these patients.
These are all natural deaths. We should reduce the infant mortality and the maternal mortality. Comparatively, if you compare to the national average, we are well within our limits.
A probe report by a government panel has absolved the hospital of all blame. The silver lining is that some new equipment and supplies have found their way into the hospital after the focus on the hospital after the baby deaths. With Uma Sudhir and Nagaraju in Kurnool, Suprita Das, NDTV.
So 10 babies dead in 2 days in a government hospital in Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh. Now, how many more times do we have to report these tragedies? Will the awful state of public health care in India ever change? In this particular case, it's just infants, newborns. And this terrible, terrible story keeps getting repeated. We had a similar situation in Kolkata some time back. Nothing seems to have changed. Well, on the show, Ravindra Reddy, the Andhra Health Minister, also joining us, Jayaprakash Narayan, the National Coordinator for the Lok Satta Movement. And joining me in the studio, Dr. Rajiv Tandon, Senior Advisor, Health and Nutrition with Save the Children. Thank you all very much for joining us. Let me come to you, Mr. Reddy, first. Now, yesterday you had said that this was an act of God, and a lot of people said this was an act of God. Could you just say that? Now you're saying other factors could be involved. So yesterday it was an act of God, today it's not. Why this change and stand?
No, Mr. Vishnu, this is like this. See, without God, the doctor cannot function. God should be there, but doctor should function to the satisfaction of his profession. So what I am trying to say is, yesterday the sanctioned strength for that hospital is 20 neonatal 20, but at that point of time there were 43 people. At the most it can cater to the needs of 25 newborns. Because 31st and 1st happens to be 2 holidays, and many of the private practitioners, they have thrown their volume of work on the general hospital,
right,
and which resulting in lesser human resources to tackle these cases.
Mr. Jayaprakash Narayan, are you okay with that? Are we reading too much into that God comment of his? That yesterday it was reported, he said, and today you just heard him say over there that look, God has to exist, but doctors need to do their own job. That ultimately this is not a story about necessarily one single fault. It's just that we have an overworked system.
No, Dr. Ravindra Reddy is a well-meaning man. He's a medical doctor himself. But as you said, we must focus more on the system. Yes. Look at the larger picture. Among the large economies, India has the worst public health care system in the world. Our public expenditure on healthcare is less than 1% of the GDP, or just about 1% of the GDP. And if you take the total health expenditure, the public expenditure is only 26%. That's the lowest in the world, comparable to only 3 terrible countries: Afghanistan, Burma, and Cambodia. Not even sub-Saharan Africa,
yes,
not even other South Asian countries, not even the poorest countries in the world are comparable to India in this respect. We have a disgraceful healthcare system. The results are out there to see.
But let me just ask Mr. Reddy a question. Mr. Reddy, would you, while you might be helpless, and that really is the tragedy, isn't it? That everybody seems to be helpless in this country when it comes to healthcare. But while you may be helpless, would you at least admit, sir, that the situation in that one hospital in Kurnool is alarming?
Definitely, I can construe that it's an alarming situation. See, in India, the IMR is, when compared to the Western countries, infant mortality rate is much more. The infant mortality and maternal mortality both are on high side in India. But with the considerable concentration by Government of India under NRHM, we could reduce. But still, what I feel, there is something to be done to reduce the infant mortality rate.
Yes.
In that direction, Government of Andhra Pradesh is working very sincerely.
But, Dr. Tandon, the government of Andhra Pradesh is working seriously. I'm sure the Bengal government is working seriously. We had another worse situation in a hospital in Kolkata. Now we've got 10 infants dead in 48 hours. And there don't seem to be any answers. And the funny thing here, and the tragic thing here, is that you can't blame anyone, can you? You can't blame the minister, because that wouldn't be fair. He's inherited a system. You can't blame the doctors, because they've also inherited a system which is short on resources. So where is this all going in terms of something as basic as this?
Vishnu, I'd like to step back, and at the outset, I think, thank media for having raised this issue of newborns. For one, what's happened in Kurnool needs to be looked at in a perspective of knowing that 10 newborns died, but we also need to know out of how many. And the minister seems to be informed
Yes.
about some overload of that particular hospital. That's true for practically every government institution at this point of time. With regard to maternal care and newborn health, because of special government incentives which are being given, mothers are being actually requested and taken to facilities where they're delivering. And the facilities do not have adequate equipment. They don't have adequate human resources. The human resources that are there are not well trained, and they don't have enough incentives and motivation to be able to take care of all these additional newborns and mothers. So definitely the system needs a lot more help. Government of India at this point of time is looking at newborn health in a priority method. They have agreed that in the 12th five-year plan, they are recommending a very special focus for newborn health. What we need is, we've heard the Prime Minister talk of enhancing the budgetary allocations for health from 1% to 2.5%. But we also know that there would be a lot of other areas that would demand more resources.
Okay, I just want to come to Dr. Reddy. Sir, obviously this is a larger issue over here, but there are lots of parents over there who've lost their infants, who are asking that one important question: accountability. Who's accountable for this? Where does the buck stop? Does it stop with you?
The government is definitely accountable, Mr. Vishnu. But what I am trying to say is, here we should see in the real perspective way. See, when the infant, see, for 1,000 live births, for 20 years back, the infant mortality rate was around 354. Imagine, from 354, we brought down to 46 in Andhra Pradesh over a period of time. So what I am trying to say is, we are trying to contain the infant mortality at any cost. So the national average is 64, something like that.
Yeah.
When compared to the national average, Andhra Pradesh is better placed. But when compared to southern Indian states of 3 states, we are lagging behind. So we would like to do it in a sincere way, with all the facilities to all the government hospitals. That's my
okay, Jayaprakash Narayan, let me just come to you for a final word over here. Those statistics you heard the minister speak or mention over there, we are really clutching at virtually nothing. These statistics are awful statistics by any token. Could you tell us, I mean, where are we going with all of this? Focusing primarily on Andhra Pradesh.
Vishnu, 3 decades ago, 3.5 decades ago, when I was at the medical school in the state, the medical school infrastructure was the best in the country and in the state. Anybody who had any problem went to the public hospital, teaching hospital. Today, the private sector has gained enormously, but the public sector has declined enormously. Dr. Tandon talked about the Prime Minister talking about enhancing the healthcare budgets.
Yes.
You know, the reality is in 2004, the UPA government promised enhancement of healthcare budget from 1% of the GDP to 3%, where in 2011, it's a grand 1% today after 7 years.
Yep.
At a time when there's a rapid expansion of the public expenditure in social sector allegedly. So there simply is no commitment to healthcare in this country.
Right.
The second is, even when the money is spent in a state like Andhra Pradesh, though it's only 1%, even when that money is spent very badly. A lot of money is going for private sector corporate care in the name of Arogyasri,
right,
ignoring the primary health care and public health infrastructure.
Right. And I think that really is the biggest tragedy, that there is, even when there are funds available, it's not necessarily going to the right place. I'm sorry, gentlemen, we are completely out of time. Jayaprakash Narayan, Mr. Ravindra Reddy and Dr. Tandon, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We could never get to the end of this, this important subject on time this evening. It just keeps going on and on. Hopefully we won't have to report something as tragic as this in the near future. But what are the chances of that actually happening? Quickly moving on to another story. Mumbai's main runway remains closed after a Turkish Airways plane skidded off the taxiway yesterday. Around 200 workers, 34 engineers are all engaged in an operation. A temporary hard pavement has been created so the aircraft, which is still stuck in the mud, can be moved to the designated site. 100 truckloads of soil have been excavated around the plane to try and extricate it. Recovery operations have been interrupted by continuous rain and gusty winds.
The Turkish aircraft, which skid off the taxiway in Mumbai airport, still stuck more than 24 hours after the mishap. Intermittent rain has interrupted recovery operations. What this has led to is delays in flights for the second day. Most flights suffered an average delay of 30 to 50 minutes.
After coming over here, we came to know that the flight has been delayed. They are writing that estimated time it's delayed by 2.5 hours. So let's see.
The intermittent rains have hampered the movement of machinery and equipment used in the salvage operations. Also, the wet ground has become more slushy, depressing the aircraft further.
The Turkish aircraft TK720, with 104 passengers including 11 crew members on board, skid off the taxiway near the main runway in the early hours of Friday. One of the passengers on board was actor Omi Vaidya of the Three Idiots fame.
We didn't know that something wrong had happened until it was over. So there was no time to really be scared. The plane